Let's talk about Nocks. So whether I'm using this micro diameter arrow like this one for 50 meters, or whether I'm using a larger diameter one for 3D or this one for indoors, I tend to use the same arrow, or nock. I tend to use a biter nock that is symmetrical, same shape top and bottom. Biter nocks are really well known for their asymmetrical shape, and that's more for like recurve shooters because of the way they have one finger above and two fingers below, like an Olympic style shooter would, called split finger. And the shape of this means that the soft knots that they would tie, or nocking points they would tie on their string, would kind of fit into those grooves better if you're a finger shooter. Now, you might be wondering, well, why do you have them when you're a compound shooter? I was looking for biter nocks, and this is what I ordered by accident, and they work fine. But I, as a rule, stick to a symmetrical nock called a hunter nock because compound. I have a release and a D-loop. So that's why my nock is shaped differently than those guys who shoot fingers. Now, I've chosen this one specifically because I like the biter nock's consistency. It fits the same every time because there's only one mold in the world for this nock. And there's only one mold at the biter factory for this nock. And why use this one for 3D when it makes this really big hole? There's a big bushing in the back of my arrow, and there's only a plastic nock kind of protecting it. Well, there are ways you could use this biter pin nock, and I'll show you why it's called a pin nock. In my micro diameter arrow, I slide this little metal pin in there, and then I can fit a nock to it. Now, I can't let go of my camera. 1 second. There we go. Well, I didn't put it all the way down, but you get the idea. It just slides down that pin. Don't do that with your teeth. It's not good for you. Now, on the larger arrow, for my indoor arrow, I guess I could use this bushing, which would fit inside the 23 diameter arrow. And they make these for that. And then I could have a pin nock on there. And then I'd have a really nice precise fitting nock. But this piece of hardware is made of aluminum, and that makes it kind of soft. What if you accidentally get a bend in here? Well, if you get a bend on the back half of your arrow, every time you aim in the middle, this arrow is going to be steered out. So that's why I definitely don't use it for 3D, because the back end of my arrow is always getting struck by my opponents. So yeah, they'll break this nock, and sometimes they'll even Robin Hood my arrow. Even really good friends of mine will Robin Hood my arrow. You know who you are. Leave a name in the comments if you want, along with a little cheeky haha, I got your arrow. But I know that this nock here is going to be straight or it's going to be broken with no middle ground. So that's why I prefer to use that in 3D. If something glanced off the back of my pin nock and bent this shaft, then maybe I would lose points all day long because my arrow would be steering itself out of the 10 ring, out of the 11 ring in 3D. Now there's other makes of nocks. So this is an Easton Super Nock, and it's got really long ears. It's a really nice fit. And I guess if you have a really steep string angle because you have a short axle-to-axle compound bow, the steep string angle will be captured inside these longer ears. But I feel like longer ears means the arrow takes longer to get off the string, and maybe that is a little more time for something to go wrong. So this is a nock that's by Red Trail, and it's the same diameter, but it's got really short ears. The only reason I don't use this one is it's slightly smaller diameter than my biters, and I would have to keep reserving my center servings from my string maker, which I guess isn't a big deal, but I just prefer biters right now because they'll fit the same for both indoor and outdoor arrows. So sometimes if I take my bow indoors because it's raining, I can just grab an indoor arrow, click, it goes onto the serving just the same as my outdoor arrows, which I still do sometimes, even in August. So there's some other kinds of choices of nock. This is a nock made by Boning, and it's called the double lock nock. so it goes in and clicks not once but 2 times. I think that's the idea. Absolutely nothing wrong with this one, but I'm just gonna stick with my biter Nocks for now. Only once have I had a real problem with a nock where a company had a defect, and when that nock broke unexpectedly, my arrow made it to the target, so it didn't dry fire, but you could end up dry firing your bow, which is, I think, the last thing I wanted to point out about Nocks. And that is the reason I like clear plastic Nocks from Biter, or just from anybody. And that's because I can hold them up to sunlight and see cracks a lot easier. If you're using a solid color, opaque, I find sometimes it's harder for me to find cracks in the nock. So, like, it'll look normal, but then when you pull it apart, it'll all of a sudden, oh, it reveals itself. There was a split in the nock, in the plastic, and you shouldn't shoot it, because you could end up dry firing your bow, and your arrow sure isn't going to go where it intends. If ever you've been shooting, like, let's say a 3D contest, or even shooting at 50 meters, and you're having some really good groups, and then you load an arrow into your bow and you click it onto the string, but it doesn't make the usual click sound, it doesn't feel tight, warning, that could be a sure sign that that nock has a split in it. You shouldn't shoot it if it doesn't click just the same as it always does. You should check it by prying at one of the ears of the nock there. And then, I guess my last bit of advice to people is, I like to use this tool from Biter, and as you can see, it accommodates and fits the Biter nock, so that when I have like a little tighter fit, I can put this over the nock and put that against my workbench and push on it, and that spares me stressing on the ears of the nock, because it'll put the stress on the groove in the middle. Don't like take your arrow if the nock isn't fitting right and just press like that. That's not what those ears are meant to withstand, and you're gonna put a bend in your nock, or you're gonna crack it. All right, that's everything I know about Nocks, and if you know something else about Nocks that I've missed, please leave a comment below.